This is Linda. It's 8:30 on a Monday morning, and she's happy. She retired 2 years ago, and she'll tell you Monday used to sit on her chest like a heavy weight before she even opened her eyes. Now she says things like, "I'm just so glad I don't have to hold my composure in a toxic workplace anymore." Linda lives alone, and Linda loves her solitude. Then there's Carol. She loves her solitude too. But there's one decision she'll tell you made all the difference. Everyone told her to sell the house. Too big, they said. That kitchen's too much for one person. She refused. On purpose. Because in this house, she knows exactly where the light falls at 4 o'clock and whose hands built the shelf by the door. Carol says things like, "I've always been a loner, but I've never once been lonely." So she stayed. Happy and home. And then there's Ben. Ben protects his peace, his words, with a vengeance. After 40 years of meetings and small talk, he'll tell you a good day is one where he doesn't have to speak to a single person he didn't choose. "I answer to nobody now," he says, like a man who waited a long time to be able to say it. 3 chosen lives. Not one of them lonely. Not one of them lost. Every one of them will tell you this is the most at peace they've been in years. And yet, listen to how the world talks about all of this. Living alone. Stepping back. Staying put. It doesn't call it peace. It calls it a warning sign. A problem to fix. A mistake. But here's what the numbers say. Today, about 1 in 5 older Americans live alone. Roughly 24 million people. And when researchers asked how they feel about it, most said they felt at ease, in control. More than a third said the best part was the freedom, not the loneliness, the freedom. So let's name what this is. The quiet Ben, Linda, and Carol chose has a name: chosen solitude. And it might be the single best thing retirement has to offer. The peace you earned after 40 years of noise. Nobody's alarm but your own. This is the prize. Solitude is not a retirement mistake. Solitude is the reward, but the prize has enemies. Chosen solitude is more fragile than it looks. These are the 3 retirement mistakes that will steal your peaceful solitude away, and the third empties it out completely. The first is isolation, where your peace becomes a prison. Isolation starts small. You go out a little less. A friend moves away, and you don't replace them. The calls get shorter, then rarer. Nothing dramatic. Just a quiet fading, until one ordinary week you realize you haven't had a real conversation in days. And the solitude you loved has curdled into something else. And it's more common than anyone admits. In one of the largest surveys of older Americans, about 1 in 3 people between 50 and 80 said they felt lonely. These aren't people who hate being alone. They're people whose solitude turned on them while they weren't looking. And here's why it's dangerous, not just sad. The U.S. Surgeon General measured what long-term isolation does to the body. The finding was blunt. Losing your connections carries a risk to your life on the scale of smoking about 15 cigarettes a day. Every day. So you don't beat isolation by giving up your solitude. You keep your solitude by keeping your people. Ben guards his peace and his circle. A standing lunch. A phone call he won't let slide. Because isolation is not an inevitable part of growing older. It never was. That's the first mistake. Isolation. But it's not the worst. The second doesn't poison your peace. It rips it out of the place it lives. And it's a move almost everyone will tell you to make. Mistake number 2. Downsizing. Chosen solitude only feels like peace somewhere that feels like yours. Carol knows it. When everyone told her to sell, fewer rooms, fewer bills, she kept circling one thought. This isn't square footage. This is where my peace lives, and she's not the exception. She's the rule. When AARP asked, about 75% of adults over 50 said they want to stay in their own home as they age, but nearly half expect they'll have to move anyway, mostly over money. That gap between the peace people want to keep and the move they feel pushed into is the mistake. The wrong move doesn't just change your address. It takes the same peace and turns it cold. Leave the street you know, and you leave the neighbors, the familiar faces, the walk you took every day. In one move, your solitude becomes an empty apartment where you know no one. Downsizing steals your place and hands your people straight to isolation, and it reaches your body. Nearly half of retirees, about 45%, do no real physical activity at all. The biggest thing that predicts whether someone keeps moving isn't willpower. It's whether their world can be walked. Move somewhere you have to drive to everything, and the walking stops, and the peace starts to feel like being stranded. Here's the distinction most people miss. Downsizing chases a smaller number and leaves your life attached to it. Right-sizing reshapes the home to protect the life you want. And right-sizing often means staying, changing the house instead of leaving it, a rail on the stairs, a step-free door, small changes that let a loved home keep your peace safe for decades. Carol right-sized. She kept her place, her people, and her peace in one decision. So that's the second mistake. Downsizing. Worse than the first, because it takes your place and your people at once. And if you're still working, still planning, watching this to get it right, the mistakes that cost the most in retirement rarely show up in your savings. But the biggest of the three doesn't take your people or your place. It takes the one thing that made solitude worth having. Mistake number 3, the biggest. Purposelessness. Here's the truth about solitude nobody tells you. Quiet is only peaceful when it's a rest between things that matter. Take away the things that matter, and the same silence stops being peace. Linda learned it the hard way. A few months after she retired, someone asked her the most ordinary question. So, what do you do? And for the first time in 31 years, she had no answer. Just a pause. Now, leaving a draining job can be healthy. Across a study of nearly 9,000 people, the risk of depression dropped in the year after they left. Leaving the grind was the right call. That part is true. But the job didn't just take Linda's Mondays. It took her answer to a simple question. Who am I? It's the loss of the identity that being the manager, the teacher, the engineer gave you. Without it, the peace she'd looked forward to went shapeless. The quiet stopped feeling like solitude and started feeling like an empty room. And here's why this one is the biggest. Researchers followed thousands of adults over 50 and measured one thing: their sense of purpose. The people with the least of it had more than double the risk of dying over the study compared to those with the most. Not double the sadness, double the risk. Purpose isn't a luxury. It's closer to medicine. But the real reason it's the biggest isn't the number. It's that this one lets the other two in. Lose your reason to get up, and you stop reaching out. That's isolation. You stop caring where you are. That's downsizing. Purposelessness isn't just the third mistake. It's the one that opens the door for the first two. Fix this, and the other two lose most of their power. That's what pulled Linda back. Not a job, a purpose. She tutors 2 mornings a week now. Small thing. But it turned her empty room back into peace. And here's the thing about purpose. You don't find it. You build it. Mentoring. Volunteering. One class. One role that says, someone is counting on me. Give the quiet a reason, and solitude becomes a sanctuary again. So look at all three. Ben, living alone. Linda, no longer working. Carol, in the house she was told to sell. 3 lives the world would call mistakes, and everyone is thriving. The solitude was never the mistake. The solitude was the prize. The mistakes were only ever what steals it. So there they are, the 3 retirement mistakes that steal your peaceful solitude: isolation, downsizing, purposelessness. Because solitude doesn't stand on its own. It rests on 3 things: your people, lost to isolation; your place, lost to downsizing; and your purpose, the one that holds up the other 2. Miss anyone, and the peace you retired for comes apart. Keep all 3, and the quiet stays yours. And this is what the research keeps circling. Strong connections lower the risk of decline. Purpose is tied to a longer, sharper life. Staying active protects your body and your mind at once. Not 3 pieces of advice, 1 structure, holding up 1 prize. And this chapter of life holds as much promise for growth as any that came before. The data proves it. So the question we opened with has flipped. The quiet was never the danger. The danger is what turns it into something else. The friend you stop calling, the place you let go, the reason you never replace. So, no. Living alone is not a retirement mistake. Neither is stepping back from work or staying in the home you love. Solitude was never the danger. It's the reward you earned. Isolation, downsizing, and purposelessness are the danger. And now you can see all 3 coming. So guard the prize. Call 1 person back. Take 1 honest look at your home. Find 1 reason to get up. And the peace you earned stays yours. If this gave you a clearer picture of what these years can hold, subscribe to Your Independent Years. Every Tuesday and Saturday, we look at retirement the way it actually works: the money, the health, the purpose, and the work, with honest numbers and no hype. The kind of guidance you've earned. Because what's ahead of you isn't a finish line. It's the most independent chapter of your life. We'll see you in the next one.